On to the next project. So I want to fit a passenger seat. I think I've mentioned it before because I want to get some instruction. And so I bought this seat. It's, as you can see, it's a Cobra Monaco Pro. It is an FIA approved seat. They do a Monaco version that's not FIA approved, but this one actually is. So I've got that to fit. I'm sure you'll be familiar with these seat fittings. So these are the side rails, so just an angle piece, one on each side. And then I require a subframe on my car, which fits the BMW hole spacing for the standard seats. But the problem I'm having is I can't get the side rails in a position where the spacing between them is correct and also they're even. So I think I've got it about right now. So let's try and, not that I want to leave it like this, which I'll explain in a second, but let's see if this will fit as it is. As you can see, it sort of fits, but here's a couple of problems. I don't like the fact that the rail on this side comes outside of the subframe. So I want to shift that to one across. And that definitely means I'm going to have to drill new holes in the subframe, because no matter what I do, juggling the brackets and the positions they're in, they won't fit the standard holes. So I'm definitely going to have to drill some more holes in the subframe. And I need to do that in a way such that I don't end up with a load of holes very close to each other and thereby weakening the subframe. But what I will do is I'll use a big plate washer underneath to make sure that I've got plenty of, the load is spread across underneath. So that's the first issue. The second issue I have is that the side piece, these side brackets, are now covering the hole at the back of the subframe, so I can't now bolt it down onto the body of the car. So I think what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to drill new holes to shift them across, and I'm going to have to put a cutout for the bolt into the body of the car. The other slight concern I've got is how on earth do I get this all fitted in the car when I won't have access to the underside of the subframe once it's in? I think what I'm going to have to do is assemble it like this first, then put the whole thing into the car with the subframe and then bolt it down. And in fact, for speed, taking the thing in and out, that would be the preference, because then every time I want to take the passenger seat out, all I have to do is undo the 4 bolts that bolt the subframe onto the chassis of the car, and I should be able to then lift the whole assembly out. To test that theory, I thought I'd just lift the car seat in and see if it goes in okay, and actually it's all good. At risk of me flipping the whole thing over backwards, I may actually try sitting in it and see what it feels like, so let's have a go with that. Okay, well, I'm 6 foot, give or take 1/4 inch. This is way too high. My head's hitting on the roll cage, so it's definitely got to go down a fair bit if you're going to leave space for a crash helmet and whatnot. Also, it is too far to the left. It needs to shift to the right, which is okay because that's what will happen when I drill the new holes. As you can see, I've got plenty of space between the subframe and the battery, and the seat and the battery actually, so that's great. That's worked out really well. And I can see I'm going to have enough space for the eye holes for the lap belts as part of the 4-point harness setup. So now I've got the seat back out, and I thought, and I've taken the seat off, let's just measure between here and here. See, I think that's supposed to be 16 inches or 405 mil. I'll check that. I've got a feeling they give the dimensions on the Cobra website. So it's the next day, and so after spending 4 hours, I think it was from 2:30 to 6:30 in the evening, trying to fit this thing, I was getting pretty frustrated. I'm not impressed, actually. I don't understand why this is so complicated. I don't know if I've got the wrong side brackets, but something's wrong. So now I've had to modify the side brackets to allow me access to the bolt holes to bolt the thing down into the car. But when I was thinking about it last night, I thought that maybe this isn't going to work too well, because I think the seat is too far forward. So I'm going to try another fitting now, see how I get on. If it is too far forward, I'm going to have to modify it. I can't leave it like this. It's just ridiculous. Now, one thing I did realise, I was a bit concerned about cutting bits out of the bracket, because I thought, am I going to weaken the bracket, and isn't it going to take a heck of a lot of force in an accident or something? But of course it's not. It only has to take the weight and the momentum of the seat shell itself. The driver's retained with the belt. So really it's not quite as bad as I originally thought in terms of maintaining the strength. Not that I want to cut so much metal out of it that it's weak, but I think I've got a fair bit of tolerance here to remove some more metal. But the problem I've got now is that the bolts that go down through here into the car, into the chassis, have to be quite long, because they have to go through this bit here, and then because the bolt holes are flush at the back, they're flush with the floor, not like the front where there's these funny sort of raised spigot bits. So the bolts have to be quite long, and what I'm concerned about is, if I put this in place, how the heck do I get the bolts in? Because they're going to go in at an angle, so I'm going to have to lift the back up, get the bolts in place, and gradually screw them down each side. Yeah, it's not ideal, quite honestly. And if I now have to cut more metal out because I want to move this back further, I'm going to be cutting into the side, and yeah, it's really messy. I don't like it. It's not great. There has to have been a better way of doing this. So there's the passenger seat in place. I think the back of the seat is about probably about 150 mil, 6 inches or so further forward than the driver one. I have just noticed something else, actually, and I'm sure you can see it. The camera's totally obscured by the headrest on the passenger seat. I'm not sure it matters too much, because obviously when I'm racing, the seat won't be in the car. But yeah, just means I won't be able to record anything, any sort of video stuff, if I've got an instructor in the car. You know what, looking at it again, I don't think the issue is that the seat itself is too far forward, because if you look at the front edge of the seat, it's actually a bit further back than the edge of the cushions on the driver's seat. Let me just crank that up. And the sort of the point where the base of the seat meets the back, that corner there is about in line with the corner on the passenger seat. So I think the issue is the seat needs tilting back, which would obviously give me more headroom, and also I don't see what it will do for your legs, but maybe the legroom isn't the issue. All I'm going to do here is slacken this front screw, both sides, and then take out the rear screw, drop the back down one level, and then screw it back in. Hopefully that will give us enough tilt and provide us with a bit more headroom clearance. Just as a quick comparison for the driver's seat, you can see the base plate is different. It's it actually has got a crank in, in the metal there, and it's actually raising the base by about 15 mil. Then I've got a slider assembly, so that's this, and then the side plates are bolted onto the slider assembly. The side plates are nowhere near as tall, and I think the bolt holes are all aligned further down, which probably explains why even with the slider installed, the seat is not higher than the passenger seat when I've got it installed. And it's tilted, so it's on 1, 2, 3 on setting 4 at the front and on setting 2 at the back. What I should have done in hindsight is, instead of buying the base plate that I've bought, I should have bought the base plate and side plates from 4040 to match this one. Yeah, well, that's a mistake, isn't it? At least I would have known it would have all fitted, because even if you take the slider assembly off, then obviously the whole lot's going to drop down. If it was too low, I could raise it because there are more holes. Also, the shaping of the brackets at the side is better, because the brackets I've got now are overlapping with the seatbelt hole. Well, it is better, but I still feel, well, you can see the seat backs. I don't know if that shows that well, but the passenger seat back is still a good 100 mil ahead of the driver's seat back. And although there is increased headroom, there's still not a mammoth amount. And I reckon that if you're wearing a crash helmet, you would definitely hear it knocking against the roll cage every so often, unless you tilted your head to one side, which is just ridiculous. We can't have that. So I need to find a way to change this. I see if I can squeeze another position out of this, so drill a hole a bit lower and then cut it into a slot. If I drill another hole further down, giving it about the same spacing as these above, maybe slightly less, the problem I'm going to have is the washer is going to cover the flat area plus an area that's coming out at a bit of an angle. But what I've decided is I'll just put a slight bend on the washer so it still spreads the load. I should be able to do that, because if you look at the bolt through the washer, there's a fair bit of space around it, so I should be able to put a small bend just in here, just to fit with the thing, with this flare that's coming out. And I think that it's surprising, just a small amount does, if I tilt this a small amount, it does move the back quite a lot, obviously because of the whole fulcrum thing and whatnot. So it will then come down to about there, which is probably as low as I can go anyway. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bite the bullet and I'm going to cut the bracket. In fact, I may cut it there. Yeah, because I'll still have 3 holes. Yeah, so I think I'm going to cut the bracket across here so that it doesn't overlap with the seat belt hole. Ah, goodness me, this is really turning into a right mission. The other thing I found was on the front, when I put a bolt, let me reposition that, when I put a bolt through here and bolted it down onto the spigot thing that sticks out of the floor, the corners of the bolt only just about clear the bracket. I may have to use an Allen key head bolt to bolt that down, and maybe a very small, I've got some quite small washers that are only just a bit bigger than the size of the bolt hole, so I think that should do that. And at the back I've got an issue where I'm going to have to cut across, just across here, to relieve this bit in the corner so that I can get a bolt through there and bolt it down, because I'm going to have a problem. But that's not so bad actually, that's a straight line cut, not too bad. I'm already committed to butchering these things, so if I mess them up, I mess them up. I don't know what else I can do. The alternative is I scrap the whole scheme and talk to Rob at 4040 and find out how I get at least get the side plates. The only thing I'm wondering is that the issue I have is that maybe this seat is wider than the existing seat. This is 405mm from one side to the other, where the bolts go through into the body of the seat. So I'm wondering if that's got something to do with it, that this is a slightly wider seat or a narrower seat, or, you know, I don't know. But it's certainly giving me some grief. Anyway, no good to keep whinging about it, and I hate doing videos where I sound so down. It's not, you know, this is not the end of the world. It's the only reason that I'm pushing on with this is because second week in February I'm doing a track day at Brands Hatch, and there's going to be a driver there who I want to come round the track with me. So I'd like to get the seat obviously in place, ready for him. In fact, what I'm hoping to persuade him to do, he won the 116 Trophy Championship a couple of years ago. I'm hoping to get him to take my car out and set me some benchmark times with my data logger and everything. And then what I'm going to try and do is emulate his speed, which I'm not sure if that's how realistic that is, but it gives me something to aim for. Right, I'm now about another 2 hours into this, so I guess I've spent about 7 hours so far doing this. You can see that I've cut another hole further down, and I've put a kink in the washer so it fits in with the flare here, so that's worked out quite nicely. And as I said I was going to do, I've trimmed this corner to give me more exposure to the bolt here to do it up. I still think I'm going to have trouble putting it in the first place, and I'll probably have to hold the seat frame up, wind the bolt in as far as I can, and then gradually lower the seat frame and do the same. I'm going to have to do it bit by bit, side by side. But quite honestly, I'm running out of ideas. At the front here, I haven't done anything. I think I've got enough space for a bolt and a washer. I've moved the seat back as far as it will go in the holes and slots that I have cut at the moment. So let's try the seat in the car again. Thank goodness it's done. It's right now. The seat back here, it is still a little bit further forward than the driver's side, but not much. It's probably 25mm or something like that. I guess I haven't checked the headroom, so I'll do that next. Seems to fit okay. I'm going to have to get some new bolts to mount it onto the floor, because I've got odd bolts, but I haven't sort of got a suitable set of bolts to bolt it down. And as I said, I think I said earlier, I'm going to use Allen head bolts because they'll take less room, and I will have a flat washer anyway, so it's not like I'm not going to have the load spread evenly. So I think we're going to go with that. I have put one temporary bolt in the front. So let me get into the car and let's see if we've got adequate headroom. As you can see, there is a gap, but it's probably 25mm, and it's pretty easy to nudge the bar. So I'm definitely going to put some foam along here. As a contrast, here's the situation on the driver's side. The gap is not that much more actually, but it is slightly more. So I think the gap on the passenger side is probably about 25-30 mil, and on this side it's about 50. So I guess it's not really, you know, that far out. I must say I do feel lower in the driver's seat than I do in the passenger seat. So there's something different about the design of the seat, I suspect. Anyway, I've gone as far as I can with this, so I'll get the bolts and we'll stick with the current configuration.